I wasn't even supposed to be at that restaurant. Let me back up. My best friend Jake had been hounding me for weeks about this blind date. She's perfect for you, man. Trust me. I didn't trust him. Jake thought everyone was perfect for everyone. Last month, he tried to set me up with his cousin, who collected taxidermied squirrels. But I was tired of eating frozen pizza alone in my apartment in downtown Portland, so I said yes. The restaurant was called Marcello's, this Italian place on 23rd Avenue with dim lighting and too many candles. I showed up 10 minutes early because I'm that guy, the one who gets anxious about being late. I stood outside for a minute, watching my breath fog up in the January cold, trying to calm my nerves. My hands were shaking and I shoved them in my jacket pockets. When I walked in, the hostess was dealing with a large party and barely glanced at me. I scanned the room, looking for someone who matched Jake's vague description. Blonde, pretty, probably wearing something blue. Thanks, Jake. Real specific. That's when I saw her. She was sitting alone at a corner table, and I swear to God, my heart stopped. Dark hair falling over her shoulders, these sharp green eyes that caught the candlelight. She was wearing a black sweater that looked soft, and she was twisting a napkin in her hands. She looked nervous. She looked beautiful. She looked up at me, and our eyes met. Here's where I screwed up. She gave me this small, tentative smile, the kind of smile that said she was hoping I was who she was waiting for. And my stupid brain, probably oxygen deprived from how fast my heart was suddenly beating, Bao decided she must be my date. The timing was right. She was alone. She was looking at me. I walked straight to her table. "Hi," I said, and my voice came out rougher than I intended. "Sorry I'm a little early. Traffic was lighter than I expected." Her eyebrows lifted slightly, but that smile stayed. "Oh no, that's okay. I got here early too." She had this voice, smooth and a little raspy, like she'd just woken up. It did something to my chest. I sat down across from her, shrugging off my jacket. I was wearing my good shirt, the navy one my sister said made my eyes look bluer. I'd actually ironed it. I never iron anything. "I'm David," I said, extending my hand across the table. She took it. Her hand was warm and smaller than mine, and when our palms touched, I felt this jolt run up my arm. "Annie," she said. Annie, and the name fit her perfectly. "So," I started, picking up the menu just to have something to do with my hands. "Jake told me almost nothing about you, just that you were pretty, and I shouldn't screw this up." I laughed, trying to sound relaxed. No pressure, right? She laughed too, but there was something odd in it, a hesitation. "Jake," she repeated slowly. "Right. Yeah, Jake Morrison. We've been friends since college. He works in tech marketing now, thinks he's a matchmaker in his spare time." I was rambling. I always ramble when I'm nervous. This is actually my first blind date in like 3 years. I'm a little rusty at this. Annie set down her menu and looked at me straight on. Those green eyes were intense, like they could see right through whatever cool guy act I was trying to pull off. "Your eyes," she said softly. My eyes? They're begging you to stay." The words hit me like a punch. I felt heat creep up my neck. What? She leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on the table. The candlelight made shadows dance across her face. "You look terrified, but also like you don't want to leave. Your eyes are doing this thing where they keep darting to the door, but then coming back to me, like they're begging you to stay." I didn't know what to say. She'd read me completely in less than 5 minutes. I cleared my throat. "I'm not terrified." Liar. But she was smiling when she said it, this real smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. Okay, maybe a little terrified, I admitted. But not in a bad way. In a, this woman is way out of my league kind of way. Smooth, she said, laughing. Does that line usually work? I don't know. I've never used it before. I grinned at her. Did it work? I'll let you know. We ordered wine. I don't even remember what kind. The waiter came and went, and I barely noticed him. Annie told me she worked as a graphic designer for a small firm downtown. She loved hiking, but hated camping because she needed a real shower. She'd lived in Portland for 2 years after moving from Seattle. Her favorite movie was The Princess Bride, and she wouldn't apologize for it. I told her I was a high school history teacher, that I coached JV basketball even though I was terrible at sports, that I drank way too much coffee and listened to podcasts about serial killers while I graded papers. That's slightly concerning, she said. I'm very normal, I promise. All the weird ones say that. We fell into this rhythm. It was this back and forth that felt effortless, easy. I forgot about being nervous. I forgot about my prepared conversation topics I'd practiced in the car. I just talked to her, and she talked to me, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. That's when she asked the question. So what did Jake tell you about me exactly? I paused, my wine glass halfway to my mouth. Honestly, not much. Just that we'd probably get along. And that you were blonde. Annie's smile faltered. Blonde? My stomach dropped. Wait, you're not blonde. No, she said it slowly, carefully. I'm definitely not blonde. We stared at each other across the table. I could feel my pulse in my throat. Who are you waiting for? I asked. Someone named Marcus. From Hinge. We matched last week. Her voice was steady, but her hands had gone back to that napkin, was twisting it between her fingers. Who are you supposed to be meeting? Someone named Sarah. Jake's coworker. The words felt like rocks in my mouth. Oh my God. Oh my God, she echoed. I should have stood up. I should have apologized, laughed it off, found my actual date. That's what a normal person would do. But I couldn't move. I was stuck there, looking at Annie, at this stranger I'd just spent 40 minutes falling for. I sat at the wrong table, I said stupidly. You did. This is your date. With Marcus. It is. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking down at the table, at her twisted napkin, at her wine glass. Anywhere but at me. My chest felt tight. I should go find Sarah. You should. Neither of us moved. The restaurant door opened with a blast of cold air. I looked up automatically, and I saw her. Blonde hair, a blue dress, scanning the room with an uncertain expression. That had to be Sarah, my actual blind date, the one I was supposed to be sitting with. And behind her, another man walked in. Tall, wearing a gray suit, also scanning the room. Marcus. I looked back at Annie. She'd seen them too. Her face had gone pale. David, she said, and my name in her voice sounded like a prayer and a curse all at once. Your eyes are still begging you to stay. My heart was hammering so hard, I thought she could probably hear it across the table. Sarah was walking toward the hostess stand. Marcus was looking our direction. I had maybe 10 seconds before this whole thing exploded. 10 seconds to make a choice that felt impossibly huge for a random Wednesday night in January. Annie's green eyes met mine. Waiting. Challenging. Terrified. Well, what are yours begging you to do? I asked. Annie's breath caught. I watched her chest rise and fall under that black sweater. Watched her fingers go still on the napkin. For a second, the whole restaurant seemed to go quiet, like someone had hit mute on the world. They're begging me to find out what happens if you stay, she whispered. That was it. That was all I needed. I reached across the table and took her hand. Her skin was warm, and I could feel her pulse racing under my thumb. Then let's find out. David, we can't just— Yes, we can. I squeezed her hand gently. We absolutely can. Marcus was getting closer. I could see him in my peripheral vision, weaving between tables. Sarah was still talking to the hostess, pointing toward the dining room. We had maybe 5 seconds. Come with me, I said, standing up but keeping hold of her hand. Right now. Annie looked up at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. But then something shifted in her expression, something wild and reckless, and she grabbed her purse with her free hand and stood up. This is insane, she said. Completely insane, I agreed. We moved fast. I threw 2 20s on the table for the wine and pulled Annie toward the back of the restaurant, away from the entrance. There was a hallway that led to the bathrooms, and what I hoped was a back exit. My hand was sweating, but I didn't let go of hers. Excuse me, sir? A waiter stepped in front of us, confused. Is everything all right? Emergency, I said, without stopping. Food poisoning, very contagious. You should probably quarantine that table. Annie made a sound that was half laugh, half gasp. We pushed through a door marked Staff Only and found ourselves in a narrow corridor that smelled like garlic and dish soap. A cook looked up from his prep station. Kitchen's closed to customers, he started. Back door? I asked desperately. He jerked his thumb toward the end of the corridor, grinning like he'd seen this before. Lovers' quarrel? Something like that, Annie said, and her voice was breathless, excited. We burst out into the alley behind the restaurant. The cold air hit me like a slap, and I finally let go of Annie's hand, but immediately missing the warmth of it. We both stood there for a second, breathing hard, white clouds of breath mixing between us. Then Annie started laughing. It wasn't a polite laugh or a nervous giggle. It was this full, genuine laugh that came from deep in her chest, and it was the best sound I'd ever heard. I started laughing too, and then we were both just standing in a dirty alley behind an Italian restaurant, laughing like idiots. We just ditched our actual dates, Annie said, wiping at her eyes. Oh my God, we're terrible people. The worst, I agreed. My face hurt from smiling. I've never done anything like that in my life. Me neither. She looked at me and her expression got serious. What are we doing, David? I stepped closer to her. We were inches apart now, and I could see the freckles on her nose. I could smell her perfume mixing with the cold night air. I have no idea, but I don't want to stop. Her eyes searched mine. You don't even know me. I know you twist napkins when you're nervous. I know you hate camping. I know you looked at me when I sat down at your table and you could have said something right away, but you didn't. I paused. Why didn't you? Annie bit her lip. Because for 1 second, I thought maybe the universe was giving me a gift. Then I thought I was being crazy. Then we started talking, and I forgot to care which one it was. My heart was doing that thing again, where it felt too big for my chest. I don't want to go back in there and meet Sarah. I don't want to meet Marcus either. So what do we do? Annie pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. I'm texting Marcus, telling him I'm sorry. Emergency came up, can't make it. She looked up at me. Your turn. I pulled out my phone and opened my messages to Jake. I typed quickly. Something came up. Tell Sarah I'm sorry. I'll explain later. Maybe. We both hit send at the same time. Done, Annie said. Done, I echoed. We stood there in the alley, 2 strangers who'd just blown up our evening plans for each other. The reality of what we'd done was starting to sink in, and I could see it on Annie's face, too, the uncertainty creeping back in. Now what? she asked quietly. I held out my hand again. Now we start over. Hi, I'm David. I just abandoned my blind date for you. Want to get coffee? Annie stared at my outstretched hand for what felt like forever. Then she took it, her fingers lacing through mine like they belonged there. Hi, David. I'm Annie. I also just ruined someone's evening. Coffee sounds perfect. We walked down the street still holding hands. I had no idea where we were going, and I didn't care. The cold bit at my face, but her hand was warm in mine, and that was all that mattered. We passed closed storefronts and a few late-night bars, with music spilling out onto the sidewalk. There, Annie said, pointing to a small coffee shop on the corner. The sign said Brew Haven, and through the window I could see maybe 3 other people inside. It looked quiet, safe, like a place where we could figure out what the hell we were doing. A bell chimed when we walked in. The guy behind the counter looked up from his phone and nodded at us. We ordered 2 coffees, black for me, with cream for her, and sat at a table in the back corner. And the shop smelled like espresso and cinnamon and old books. Annie wrapped both hands around her mug and looked at me over the rim. So, we did that. We really did. Jake's going to kill you. I laughed. Probably. What about your friends? Did anyone set you up with Marcus, or was that all you? All me. Online dating. She made a face. I've been on maybe 15 first dates in the last 6 months. They all blur together after a while. Coffee shops and awkward small talk and guys who spend the whole time talking about their CrossFit routine. I hate CrossFit, I said automatically. See? Already better than Marcus. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Can I ask you something? Why'd you really leave? You don't know me. Sarah might have been amazing. I set down my coffee and leaned forward. You want the honest answer? Always. Because when I sat down at that table, I felt something I haven't felt in years. And then when I realized my mistake, when I knew I should get up and walk away, that feeling got stronger. It was like my brain was screaming at me to stay, even though it made no logical sense. I paused, and then you said that thing about my eyes begging to stay, and I knew you felt it too. Annie's face flushed pink. I did feel it. I do feel it. That's what scares me. Why does it scare you? Because this doesn't happen. People don't just meet by accident and feel like this. It's not real life. It's a movie or a romance novel or something people make up to feel better about their boring hinge dates. I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. It's happening right now. How much more real does it need to be? She looked down at our hands, then back up at me. What if we're just caught up in the moment? What if tomorrow we wake up and realize we made a huge mistake? Then we made a mistake, I said. But what if we didn't? Annie's eyes held mine, and I could see her working through it. All the what-ifs and maybes fighting against whatever this was between us. She turned her hand over under mine, so our palms pressed together. Okay, she said softly. Okay, let's see where this goes. We stayed in that coffee shop for 3 hours. We talked about everything. She told me about her family in Seattle, her mom who called her every Sunday without fail, her younger brother who was studying marine biology in San Diego. I told her about my dad, who passed away when I was in college, how I became a teacher because of him, how he used to quiz me on historical dates while we drove to basketball practice. She showed me photos on her phone of a hiking trip she took to Crater Lake last summer. I showed her a video of my students reenacting the Boston Tea Party that had gone completely off the rails. We laughed until the guy behind the counter gave us a look. When they finally kicked us out at closing time, we stood on the sidewalk outside, and I realized I didn't want the night to end. Annie pulled her coat tighter around herself and looked up at me. I should probably get home. she said, but she didn't move. Probably, I agreed. I didn't move either. This was the craziest thing I've ever done. Me too. She stepped closer, and my heart jumped into my throat. David? Yeah? Your eyes aren't begging anymore. They look happy. I smiled and reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. My hand lingered on her cheek, and she leaned into it slightly. That's because they got what they wanted. And what's that? More time with you. Annie rose up on her toes and kissed me. It was soft and sweet and tasted like coffee and cinnamon. And when she pulled back, I had to remind myself to breathe. I want to see you again, she whispered. Like, actually, see you. Not by accident. Tomorrow, I said immediately. Or is that too soon? I don't want to seem desperate, even though I absolutely am. She laughed, that full, genuine laugh from the alley. Tomorrow's perfect. But David? Yeah? We have to tell Jake and Marcus what happened eventually. I groaned. Can we wait until after tomorrow? I want at least one more date before Jake lectures me about honor and friendship. Deal. She pulled out her phone. Give me your number. Your actual number this time, not some mix-up. We exchanged phones, and I put my contact in as David, the guy from the wrong table. She put hers in as Annie, your best mistake. I called her an Uber and waited with her until it arrived. Before she got in, she turned and kissed me again. Longer this time, her hands fisted in my jacket. Tomorrow, she said against my lips. Tomorrow, I promised. And I watched her Uber drive away and stood there on the empty street like an idiot, grinning at nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from Annie. My eyes are begging to see you again already. I typed back fast. Mine too. Breakfast, 9 a.m., same coffee shop? 3 dots appeared immediately. It's a date. A real one this time. I walked home through the cold Portland night, my hands in my pockets, my heart lighter than it had been in years. I'd sat at the wrong table and found exactly the right person, and her eyes had told me to stay.